Welcome back to News Talk. Coming up for you later this hour, why Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, and John Kasich have done a 180 on their earlier pledge to support the eventual GOP nominee. Right now, though, let's get back to our conversation with Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton, Democrat of the District of Columbia. Can you talk about the victory that your city just won on a key issue? It might sound wonky, but in terms of the city's ability to continue functioning if at the federal level there were to be down the road, as we've had in the past, some kind of headbutting on whatever and a budget brinksmanship that caused the federal government to shut down. Your city wants to keep running. It deserves to do so because the funds are raised locally. Talk about how the budget autonomy win came about.
Well, if I could take the wonk out of it, our budget, locally raised budget, goes to the Congress, and as you say, sometimes the Congress shuts it down and we get shut down with it. The people of the District of Columbia in 2013 passed what we called a budget autonomy referendum, saying, okay, we don't want the budget to go to the Congress anymore. We were sued in federal court. Ultimately, they transferred it to the Superior Court, and lo and behold, the Superior Court said that the Congress, in the Home Rule Act, way back then, more than 40 years ago, gave the District of Columbia the right to seek budget autonomy. It has done so with a referendum. This court will not interfere with that. What a huge win. Now, I can't say to your viewers that that means we're home free, because the Congress could take away the whole Home Rule Act. It could just wipe it out. And the Congress could say, well, we heard what the court says, but this Home Rule Act is a congressional matter, and we say you won't have it. I've been able to keep them from doing that for, 3 years now? So I'm going to try to keep them from doing it now that the time has come for D.C. to, in fact, test this principle and not send its local budget to the Congress of the United States, which I understand it fully intends to do. Not send its local budget, but to send the federal budget like everybody else would do.
I want to ask you about the race for the White House and the Democratic contest pitting Hillary Clinton against Bernie Sanders. I'm told that her lead over him now is even larger than the lead that Barack Obama had over a certain New York senator 8 years ago. Do you get why Bernie Sanders stays in? I don't think mathematically he's eliminated yet, but it's a very uphill climb. He's clearly got issues that he's passionate about, wants to continue to press. He continues to draw crowds. Is it your view that Sanders has every right to stay in, or as a party matter, would it be better if he dropped out and let your nominee, your party coalesce behind a nominee who can then pivot to the general and the battle against whomever?
And I think she's pivoting to the general. But I cannot in good faith, even though I've endorsed Hillary. I endorsed Hillary because I went up to her and asked her, are you for statehood? After she had announced, she said, Eleanor, I've always been for statehood. That's all I needed. But I cannot say that Bernie Sanders has not made her a stronger candidate. For one thing, he's put the issue of the day on the map, and that is income inequality, no matter how you look at it. What he's doing is winning in states that have caucuses. If you want to organize those states and, for example, get the young people out, those states are easier to win than states that have full-grown primaries. Why are the young people rallying to him? They're rallying to him because we told them, my generation told them, get your college degree, you're home free. You get your college degree, you're lucky to get an unpaid internship in Eleanor Holmes Norton's office or in the private sector. This is a
and you have a ton of debt to figure out how to...
And let's talk about that. And when you saddle a new generation with something that is unheard of in American history, don't expect them to do anything but look for somebody who, even if he says he's a democratic socialist, and even though we know that cannot prevail in our country, we do know that he has put that issue on the map. He's put it on the map for Democrats who do not support him, and I believe he's put it on the map for the electorate in November.
Are you worried that young people could stay home in November?
That worries me. Because they are young and perhaps not politically sophisticated. Perhaps they want to behave like some of these Republicans. I want it all, or I don't want you to have any of it. Perhaps they haven't learned the art of compromise. She is practiced in that. But when they hear what the other side has to say, even if we get somebody other than Trump, he has repainted the image of the Republican Party. Their generation has more to lose if the Republicans win this time than my generation does. And I think they'll come to their senses, especially if Bernie does the right thing. And I think he will. I think he will endorse her, and I think he will barnstorm for her.
I'm told there are 40 states that have voted the same way since 2000 in presidential elections. In other words, if they voted Republican in 2000, they voted Republican. They've voted Republican in every election
I
since.
thought the District of Columbia was the only state like that. Go ahead.
And Democrat. So you're looking at 10 that theoretically are in play, and we always hear that there are 5 or 6 that are really the deciders. But we're also hearing that Donald Trump's appeal could be different, that he could pull from the blue column some states that you would typically say are one of the 40, right, and make them at least states that the Democratic nominee would have to defend. But at the same time, I'm wondering, given all the controversy about this campaign, are there enough angry white, particularly men, to put Donald Trump over the top? Bottom line, as I ask a much too long question, how do you assess his impact on our national political system if he's the nominee?
Bruce, he's not an ideological Republican, and that's a danger for us. He doesn't quite know what he is. He picks and chooses. He takes trade. Well, a lot of Democrats are against trade because he lost jobs. He says kind of iffy things on health care that make it look like he's not with the notion of taking all out of Obamacare. He is so mixed up in his ideology that even when he says the Hispanics should not be allowed, which is anathema to Democrats, there will be Democrats who think I don't have any job and maybe the Hispanics have something to do with it. Just like these white men think the Hispanics have to do with what has happened to their jobs rather than the global economy. So I do think he is a clear and present danger. The reason I think he won't win is because I really don't think that you can behave that way and become president of the United States. And I don't think you can insult everybody except white men and become president of the United States. Look what is happening with women. 70% or so of them say that they find him unacceptable. That's even bigger than people of color. So I don't see how he can win, but I am one of those Americans, one of those members of the House who do not underestimate him.
Surely you know Judge Garland. We have about a minute left. Surely you know Merrick Garland. And we're seeing some interesting softening. We'll talk more about this, by the way, in the next segment with Josh Gerstein of Politico. Some Republican senators are now saying they are willing to meet with Judge Garland, President Obama's Supreme Court nominee, of course. But according to Mike Allen of Politico, even in the West Wing, they don't expect confirmation. Your thoughts on where things stand?
Yeah, they're going to hold fast. There is some sense that in the lame duck, if they see Hillary coming, they may let him go by. They don't have a thing on this man. The District of Columbia, that's the only jurisdiction he has, doesn't have the hot button issues. We don't have abortion. We don't have affirmative action. So they really don't have anything on him. So they look bad holding up a man that looks like he's middle of the road just because he apparently is the nominee of Obama.
If Obama's for him, they're against him.
Exactly. That says it. And I think his people out there are crumbling, at least say, because Republicans have more seats up this time than Democrats do. So they are in real danger if they don't want to even meet the man. So now more and more of them are saying, at least we'll meet him.
So between now and the election, so I'm walling off the lame duck for conversation purposes, you think confirmation's unlikely, the door potentially opening a crack depending on November? Depending on November. Eleanor Holmes Norton represents the District of Columbia in the U.S. House. It's always great having you here. Great, interesting issues on tap today, as always. Thanks very much for your time. Good to be with you, Bruce. We will see you soon. Headlines and the forecast coming your way next, and then it was bound to happen. Now it has. The Supreme Court deadlock on a really big case.